The way that we feel is that we are in a car with a drunk driver and we don't even have a seatbelt to put on. That's the way that I feel and that I see people feeling. We don't know what's going on. This guy is going 100 miles per hour. He's drunk as fuck. He's falling asleep and we are helpless in the back.
Hello, and welcome to the PoliticsGirl podcast. I'm your host, Lee McGowan. Let's get into it. So when you're in the creator world, you spend a lot of time alone, but occasionally you have the pleasure of meeting some of your fellow creators. I was lucky enough to meet Heidy Torres in DC a couple of months ago, and we have become fast friends. If you don't know Heidy Torres, she is a political commentator and digital creator who previously appeared debating political figures on Univision's debate show Línea del Fuego. She creates primarily Spanish-language political content for the Latino community in the United States, covering corruption, authoritarianism, democracy, and U.S. Latin American politics. She is also the host of a political analysis show focused on breaking down major stories with context and receipts. Long story short, Heidy is a huge Spanish-language creator and an amazing person. But I'm having her on the show today to talk about something known as HondurasGate. Heidy called me back in May to ask if I knew anything about it because American media did not seem to be covering it, and not surprisingly, I did not. So I am having Heidy on today to fill us in on this extraordinary story that includes bribery, a smear campaign, Israel, Trump, and an organized plot to destabilize Mexico and other progressive governments in Latin America. So without further ado, please welcome my guest, political commentator, digital creator, and expert on U.S. Latin American politics, Heidy Torres. Welcome, Heidy.
Thank you so much. I was desperate to have this conversation with you because I'm just furious nobody's talking about this.
I know. You called me and you were like, why is no one talking about this? Why are the American news stations not picking this up? It's barely even big enough in Latin America, even though the major players have made comments on it. Now, listen, before we go ahead, we both know that my Spanish is appalling. So I say your name, Heidy Torres. Please tell us what your name is in Spanish.
In Spanish, if you ever want to try it, it's Heidy Torres.
Oh my gosh, my son will kill me, but here we go. Heidy Torres.
You see? Perfect.
I wish I was better at Spanish, honestly. I want to really thank you for bringing this to my attention because as I started looking into it, I was like, I cannot believe that we're actually not talking about this. I can't believe this story is going under the radar like this. But we literally have almost zero coverage of it in the States. And to back it up, let's assume that the audience knows nothing about HondurasGate. Assume that this story is completely new to us and tell us what it includes and why we should care.
Okay, so basically HondurasGate, by the name Gate, you already know, is a controversy. It's an international political scandal stemming from leaked audio recordings published by independent journalists and the Latin America investigative outlet Canal Rojo. The outlet released 37 recordings pulled from WhatsApp, conversations, Signal, Telegram, dated between the beginning of 2026 and April, alongside independent forensic analysis using Phonexia Voice Inspector, I think is the name of the source, but it's basically a biometric voice authentication tool used by audio specialists. In other words, they didn't just drop the audios. They did the verification work too, and those audios are also available for anyone who wants to conduct their own independent verification. What those recordings allegedly reveal, and I honestly think that they are real, because I know what Donald Trump, you know as well, and we will be covering it soon, but basically it reveals a transnational right-wing network led by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, with former Honduran President Juan Hernández, who was recently pardoned by Donald Trump, and he would be serving as one of the key regional figures. The alleged goal is to dismantle left-wing governments and eliminate progressive influence across Latin America. And that's just where the story starts, because if these audios are real, and again, I believe that they are, they don't just give us new information. They confirm things that we already knew about Donald Trump. They confirmed that Donald Trump allegedly received bribes in exchange for pardons. But we've known this for a while now. And they also confirmed that this regime has an active plan to dominate and control Latin America. When we talk about this content and the recordings, I want people to understand that what really confirms the veracity of these audios is Trump's own actions, his interference in elections in Latin America, threatening voters in Argentina, Honduras, and now Colombia, warning entire countries that if they don't elect his preferred candidate, he will use his power against them. His illegal removal of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela and his possible future incursion in Cuba, all of this, in addition to his own national security strategy released in December of 2025, where his administration detailed what amounts to a new Monroe Doctrine, where he basically says that he wants to control the entire hemisphere. And I am furious because most people have not covered this story. If it had been somebody else, anybody else, it would have ended careers. It would have dominated every single platform. But because it's Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu who basically get away with murder, nobody is talking about this. So major publications kind of like touched a little bit of it because they are basically concocting this complot in order to destroy Mexico and Colombia because they are led by left-leaning governments. And also CNN recently interviewed him and briefly asked about HondurasGate, and he denied it. And he said that he had done his own independent verification of the recordings and called them fake, but didn't provide any evidence to support his claim. So thank you again for the opportunity to talk about this because this story deserves to be heard. And again, anybody can access the audios and do an independent verification.
Yeah, and Heidy has taken the time to take a lot of those audios and translate them into English for us because a lot of this information is in the Spanish language. And those of us who don't speak it don't even know to go to look for it. So I want to just back it up a little so you understand what Heidy's saying. This all comes from leaked audio. These are tapes that allegedly expose this transnational far-right network who includes the ex-Honduran president, former Honduran president, Juan Hernández, the current Honduran president, Nasri Asfura, and international figures like we're saying, Donald Trump, Argentinian President Javier Milei, and Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu. So these audio recordings, which you've kindly translated for us, and I will attach in the episode, have been independently verified. They were allegedly extracted from encrypted message platforms, like you're saying, WhatsApp and Telegram. And then they were analyzed with forensic voice identification software so people knew who was talking on the tapes. And if you believe what is being said, and there seems to be no reason not to believe this, they include several major allegations against world leaders that everyone really should be, to your point, be talking about. The first allegation, I'm going to say, is the Trump's pardon of Juan Hernández. Okay, so he pardoned him after he was sentenced for major drug trafficking charges in 2024. And the recordings basically say that Israeli-linked actors helped orchestrate and fund this pardon that Donald Trump gave to Hernández after he had been convicted. The second allegation is that Hernández can be heard on the tapes discussing the creation of a Miami-based digital journalism group who were apparently given $350,000 in funding from the Argentinian president with the goal to spread disinformation and destabilize the progressive governments in Latin America, specifically targeting Mexico's Claudia Sheinbaum, who is the leader of Mexico, and Colombia's Gustavo Petro. Finally, the audios allege that the strategies that were put in place to secure Juan Hernández's return is to get him back into the presidency and the suppression of any political opposition that might happen to that. Does that sound correct to you?
Yes.
These leaks themselves, they created major shockwaves through Latin America, right? They sparked intense debate on the concepts of foreign meddling, transnational media wars, what each network is saying, fake news, not fake news. But it was also met with a lot of skepticism and defense. Why do you think that was? Why do you think people wanted to pretend it wasn't real?
Thankfully for these people, there's the existence of AI because now even things that are real, they're just saying it's AI. So then that's when it comes the authentication part of this. And a lot of people do not want to touch it. But again, the audios are there for them to verify themselves if they really wanted to. I think that the problem here, or the main thing that it's happening, is that it's Donald Trump. The main character here is Donald Trump. And there's so much information coming out every single day. He's flooding the zone. That's what they're telling us. They even call that a strategy. They give us so much to talk about. And, the war with Iran right now and everything else, that when you put it in the scale of things, everybody's like, that's Trump being Trump. He pardoned this guy to use him later. Like, that's not a controversy, because we are so used to Donald Trump doing all of these things that all of a sudden, this story is Latin America. Of course, he wants to do this. This is the same guy who is threatening to invade or get, Canada to be the 51st state, or even Greenland. So that's why I think this story hasn't really been picked up, because we're so used to Donald Trump being this guy that people are like, that's Trump being Trump. But the leaders of the countries that he wants to destabilize talked about it. So they did take this seriously. And Claudia Sheinbaum, for example, last month, she had like a march where she gathered a lot of people, like I would say millions of people went to the streets with her. She's very popular in Mexico, where she basically said that she's not going to allow Donald Trump to interfere in Mexican stuff, how he has been threatening them and all of that. So these leaders have taken it seriously. And he also talks about Colombia and Petro, who is the current president, he's on his way out at this point, and the elections are actually in place right now. They're going on the second round. And Donald Trump already said that he wants the far-right guy to win the election. So he's doing it constantly, and that's why I believe that this is true, because this is just his own actions are confirming what this audios reveal.
You can see the audio, and then you can see the actions happening outside the audio, and the two things go together. I mean, I think that's the most important part to remember, that sometimes what you're seeing with your eyes and ears is actually what's happening. And like you're saying, the problem is that Donald Trump talks a lot about being in charge of the Americas, and he means North America and South America, that he should be in charge of all of it. And we often say that these authoritarian leaders around the world are looking to carve up the world for themselves into pieces, right? Putin will take Europe and Russia, and she can have the Asia countries, and, maybe Netanyahu and works down in the Middle East, and then Trump gets all of the Americas. So I think we have to keep in mind that this is a much broader plan for a lot of these people. Now, the Australian broadcasting company, North America is not touching it, but the Australian broadcasting company did a whole radio story on this, saying that if it's true, HondurasGate story is one of the most underhanded conspiracies going on in the world today that no one is talking about. And I feel like if we're sitting here in America right now, what do we do with that information? What would you have us be aware of as far as the relationship between Latin America and the United States of America, and what those of us who aren't paying attention because we're distracted by the war, or we're distracted by some sort of idiotic thing he's doing, or by the concentration camps or whatever, what do you think we should know about Latin America and the relationship between the two countries to keep in mind as we move forward?
So I think that for starters, we should definitely keep in mind that Trump's actions shouldn't be minimized just because we're so used to him committing crimes and basically normalizing all of this corruption. This is not normal. And that's why it's so infuriating to see how he has a plan to go to every single country in Latin America, the same countries where the people that he wants to get rid of are at or come from. He wants to basically own those countries. And in one of the audios, for example, this is why they are so important. Juan Orlando Hernández, the narco-terrorist, if we go by the same definitions that Donald Trump uses towards other narco-terrorists that he doesn't like, he says that Donald Trump is going to stay in power. And he says, I don't know how. He tells the person that he's talking to, I don't know how, but he will. So he knows from firsthand experience that Donald Trump has a plan to stay in power. So that's the main reason why we have to care about this. And again, he says that, and we've heard Donald Trump, he's actually selling merch of 2028, the merchandise that he would use. And even J.D. Vance recently said that he's not interested in a run for 2028, maybe because he knows that he will be the vice president and not the president. So we have to care about this because this is exactly what happened, for example, and I don't want to say that the exact same things are happening, but I feel like we are en route to it. This is a Hitler type of mentality that Donald Trump has. We have already seen 18 deaths in ICE detention centers, and they already told ICE, the detention centers, not to report the deaths of the people that they let go because they are in bad condition.
Yeah, and just so people understand, what Heidi's talking about is Mark Milwain, who's now in charge of DHS. He has recently said that they are no longer going to report how many deaths are happening in these camps. And that is shocking, and it should shock you, because it means that they can be doing whatever they want. And those concentration of people camps could become death camps, and we don't know. It's like we don't know the amount of children that have been raped there, because we know now there's a bunch of young teenagers and young girls who are pregnant but didn't go into the detention camps pregnant. This is stuff that we really should be truly shocked about.
Yes, and something that they're doing in Honduras, for example, is that they are creating these autonomous cities inside the country, and they basically put up the rules. It's for extremely rich people. Those are the only people that are basically allowed in there. And the Honduras government cannot intervene in what happens in what they call sedes. That's how they call these cities, sedes. And they are doing whatever they want. Imagine what these people will be doing in these autonomous cities that are controlled by the 1%. And Donald Trump is basically requesting a lot of bases, military bases in Latin America. He is requesting tax-free zones and a lot of things for him and his billionaire pals. They are going to build this train that is extremely long, similar to one that was recently built in Mexico that was highly criticized by the right. But they're building that, and they are talking about giving it to Trump's friends. The things that they're talking about in these audios are just crazy things that you think you are kind of like transported into a movie where you're literally seeing all of the villains, the way that they think, the way that the right thinks. And this is not only Donald Trump's plan, this is also Israel. The Prime Minister of Israel is also involved, because in these recordings, we hear him say that Israel was the one to facilitate and negotiate his pardon. And he doesn't say that Israel paid for it, but he insinuates that the money came from Israel. And he says that he owes everything to Benjamin Netanyahu, he says. And he is kind of like telling the people, his people inside of Honduras, is like, you guys didn't do this for me. They did this for me. So he's kind of mad in that audio. And again, this is the beginning of something nefarious that we will be seeing in Latin America. And the 1% and Donald Trump's people and Republicans, because it's not only Donald Trump. He talks about Republicans a lot and how Republicans are the ones with the support of Donald Trump creating this disinformation cell where they will be attacking with lies the governments of Mexico, Colombia, and also inside Honduras. They are talking about how they will use churches. Listen how these people think. They are talking about using the churches to talk about how bad the government, which he admits in the same audio that was great for the people, he will use the churches to make sure that people forget about his own crimes, because he also says that he is going to deny the Trump strategy, all of the accusations, especially because Donald Trump basically gave him a clean slate after he pardoned him. He's going to say that that all of those things were Biden's regime that used all of those lies against him. We don't know why Biden would do that anyways. But basically, they're talking about using the church to convince the people that they are the good guys. And they are even saying in this audio, and Donald Trump, in my opinion, is responsible from everything that will happen in Honduras from now on, because he was the one who pardoned this guy. This guy says in one of the audios that all of the killings that they will have to commit, all of the kidnappings and the deaths, they will use the church to make sure that people think that they call the left-leaning governments, they call them communist. Everybody's a communist, just like here in the United States. But they say that they will make sure that they will blame the left or the communist of all of the things that they will do to remain in power.
Functional mushrooms seem to be all the hype right now. So, like the nerd I am, I did a bunch of research into the companies that were working with them. And the same company kept coming up in the best ofs list, Mudwater. Are you someone that struggles with brain fog or feeling groggy in the morning, but you're sensitive to caffeine? Then Mudwater might be for you. Mudwater has about 1/7 of the caffeine of coffee, so you get the focus and energy without the jitters, crash, or anxiety. Mudwater's original blend is a coffee alternative made with cacao, chai, turmeric, and functional mushrooms like lion's mane and reishi. It's like a spicy hot chocolate when you get this warm, focused boost without the wired buzz or midday crash. For coffee lovers who just can't handle the full caffeine load anymore, Mudwater is the version of your morning drink you didn't know existed. Because loving coffee shouldn't mean negotiating with it every morning. If you're ready to make the switch to clean energy, go to mudwater.com and grab your starter kit. Use the code PoliticsGirl and you'll get 43% off. The frother alone is worth that. That's right, up to 43% off with the code PoliticsGirl at mudwtr.com. And after you purchase, they're going to ask how you found them. Please show the show some support and let them know we sent you. Try the consistent energy of Mudwater. No spike at 9, no crash at 2, just steady all day. So our darling Chips, the amazing, fabulous, adorable golden doodle, just turned 12. His birthday was last month. And while he is the best dog in the entire world, he is also an incredibly picky eater. And if you have a picky eater dog, you know it can be very stressful. It's like a song and dance at mealtime. You try different brands, you put toppings on top of the food, you even sit next to them and hand feed them like my husband does to get them to eat. But I swear, our dogs know the difference between real food and whatever most dog foods are made of, which is why we have been feeding Chips Sundays for Dogs for years. Sundays for Dogs starts with 80% all-natural meats and finishes with superfoods like kale, ginger, and blueberries. They gently air dry instead of using high heat, so Sundays doesn't smell like dog food because it has no chemicals, no nutritional blends. It's just simple, complete nutrition. Sundays was founded by Dr. Tori Waxman, a veterinarian and dog parent who wanted a quality food that didn't need to go in the fridge, the freezer, required no prep, and made no mess. You get the quality of a home-cooked meal with the serve ease of kibble. It's what dog food should be. And with over 100,000 dogs eating Sundays, let their reviews speak for themselves, especially from owners of picky eaters who have never seen their dog be so committed to a food. I can speak wholeheartedly for my picky eater dog. The Chips actually really enjoys Sundays. I never feel like I'm letting him down when I put it in his bowl. So why not add Sundays to your routine or make the switch? Go to sundaysfordogs.com/politicsgirl50 and get 50% off your first order. Or you can use the code PoliticsGirl50 at checkout. That's 50% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/politicsgirl50. sundaysfordogs.com/politicsgirl50 or use the code PoliticsGirl50 at checkout.
They will blame the left or the communist of all of the things that they will do to remain in power.
I want to remind people again that what Heidi's talking about, it's all on leaked audio. These are all conversations between high-level government people talking about what they're going to do, what their plans are. You know, Donald Trump's going to stay in power through 28. Not sure how he's going to do that, but he's going to do that. And then we see him saying the same thing up here, running the same play up here, selling the merch up here, having JD Vance saying, you know what, I don't really want to be president. I'm really happy being Donald Trump's vice president. And you're like, oh, does he know something we don't know? This is the thing, that the audio tapes that were found really highlight what's actually happening. And then you look at these cities that Heidi's talking about, these super cities for the 1%ers where laws don't apply from the country. They've got their own laws. They've got their own rules. And that's exactly what people like Peter Thiel are talking about up here. And Peter Thiel, by the way, we should remind you, is moving his family to Argentina. And they want to have these cities where they get to make their own rules. If you just think about like a sci-fi movie in the future where the ultra rich live somewhere like Elysium just above us, you know, and they live in perfect harmony and we all sort of struggle for what's left. That is kind of what they're building, and it's all connected. I mean, people are pointing out that Mexicans have been saying for years that we should be paying more attention to these global criminal organizations that include businessmen and media outlets and corrupt politicians, because they keep operating misinformation campaigns within their country to destabilize it. And always those outside influences are aligned with U.S. interests. I mean, it feels like you could argue at this point that the U.S. has done everything it can to prevent Latin America from being independent and self-sufficient, and that they're just looking to take over at this point after destabilizing them for so many years.
Yeah, and Argentina is one of the key players. In the audience, it is revealed that Argentina, through Javier Milei, who is the right-wing president right now, for which Donald Trump issued a warning to Argentinians if they didn't elect the people who could keep him having power to continue to destroy the country. He is one of the main players in this, and he is giving money in order to create this information cell in Miami to destabilize this country. And the thing is that, remember that people from these countries, from our countries, are not welcome under Donald Trump. And what they are doing is destabilizing them and threatening people so that they can impose their right-wing governments in there. And then when the people are way too poor and they need to try to improve their lives, guess where they are going to come? They will come to the United States. And Donald Trump and his regime are telling these same people, you're not welcome here. But at the same time, they are destroying Latin America. Look at Argentina. Right now in Argentina, poverty is, I don't think that their country has ever seen what they are seeing. The poverty, everything that Republicans are doing here to damage vulnerable communities has been done in Argentina.
Yeah, Argentina is basically a beta test for what is happening here now. And I think we need to remember that Donald Trump personally sent 40 billion American taxpayer dollars to the president of Argentina. And if you don't know who the president of Argentina is, he's the same guy that was on the stage with Elon Musk when he had the chainsaw. That is the president of Argentina. So it's all very connected with these high level players. Here's the thing. This is one of those stories where you have to keep saying allegedly. Alleged, right? Despite the fact that we have these audio transcripts, that they have been verified by numerous experts numerous times. And these are people that verify audio transcripts to make sure they're not AI generated, to make sure the voices are indeed real. And then we have all this information, and the tapes go so far in explaining why we would pardon the ex-Honduran president. You're like, why did he do that? We're shooting boats out of the sea because they're narco terrorists. We're going to kill all these people that haven't even been proven to be drug runners. And yet we're going to let the biggest drug runner go free. Why would we do that? But it's dangerous to buck the powers that be in America right now. It's dangerous to buck the powers that be around the world right now. Look what's happening in Iran. Look what's happening in Latin America. I feel like it's a rogue America that we're dealing with now. And I know that a lot of Latin American experts have pointed out that the president of Venezuela was meant to be an example of what can happen to Latin American leaders who don't back, say, America or don't back Israel, because I know that President Maduro was apparently very pro-Palestine. And I know that the president of Mexico and the president of Brazil are very pro-Palestine as well. And they're trying to say, fall in line or get removed. Do you find that?
Actually, the ball is rolling already. Donald Trump is already accusing specific politicians in Mexico of being narco-terrorists or working with narco-terrorists. And all of them happen to be on the side of the current president of Mexico. So that's already happening. And what we are seeing here is that Donald Trump starts with these allegations about these people. I don't call it the Department of Justice anymore. I call it the Department of Injustice. Goes and they start a case investigating them, or they indict them. And then they start these cases that allow Donald Trump to pretend that he actually cares about the narco-terrorist, even though he actually pardoned one. So that's the allegations that are being created against left-wing leaders or politicians. He also tried to say the same thing about Petro in Colombia. He ended up coming to the United States and had a conversation with Donald Trump. And at the time, it seemed like Donald Trump was going to stop saying those things about him. But Donald Trump is still trying to push the far-right candidate in Colombia. But this is already happening. Donald Trump is already creating these allegations against specific politicians, because at some point, and we have been hearing this since his first term, he wants to go into Mexico. He wants to go and bomb Mexico, and the president says, no, you're not going to do that. You're not going to violate our sovereignty. But it's already happening. We're already seeing how Donald Trump has specific figures in Mexico that he is going currently right now after them, saying that they are working with narco terrorists.
Right. And I think people can see that happening here in the States too, when they sent investigators like 12-year-old Nick Shirley to Minnesota to say that the governor of Minnesota was, in fraud. And then they turned their attention to California to try and say Governor Newsom was involved in fraud. And now they're saying that the California primary election is all corrupt. That it's about feeding a media narrative to get the illusion of something that then they can act on as if it's truth. And I think it's really so unfortunate that the U.S. mainstream media is just ignoring this story because it's obviously a gigantic story. And why do you think they're doing that?
A lot of them do not really care about Latin America. I feel that maybe if Claudia Sheinbaum, president of Mexico, had said more, because she limited it to a post, and she does these things that are called mañaneras, where every morning she does like a press conference, and she mentioned it when it first came out. I feel like she should have addressed it in a more forceful way so that people would have taken it more seriously. And I guess that at the same time, people see Donald Trump in a way as the taco Trump, the person who always chickens out, that says a lot and ends up not doing much. But in this case, remember that Donald Trump is not telling us that he's doing this. We know it because the audios were revealed. But they're not telling us. I mean, he's kind of telling us when he's threatening to do all of these things, but this operation, this specific operation, they didn't tell us. So I feel like that's why we need to take it more seriously, because the fact that they didn't tell us, and you know that Donald Trump is the type of person that says it, these outrageous things, and that's it, because he doesn't care. But this is more on the covert side and is operating in the shadows, let's say, and it's the same tricks that we already know that they have used with the same people. Roger Stone, by the way, is one of the key players here as well, and many Republicans that they don't necessarily mention, they just say Republicans. So I feel like that's why many news outlets didn't take it seriously. Maybe if the people that were like Claudia Sheinbaum that were in the controversy had been a little bit more forceful, they will have.
I'm going to attach the audios to this podcast itself so you can listen to them yourself. And I think we have to say, assuming this story is real, and I think it's only logical that it is, why else would the president pardon the Honduran president? As someone wrote online, I have zero doubt this is real, because Trump would not have pardoned a criminal like Hernández without a quid pro quo. This is how he works.
Exactly.
He doesn't do something for nothing.
At the same time, because remember that at the same time that he pardons a convicted person that was convicted of conspiring to traffic more than 400 tons of cocaine into the United States, who was sentenced to 45 years and only served 19 months, he went into a country, Venezuela, to kidnap the head of state. It doesn't matter if we like Maduro or not. I dislike the guy, but I can admit that what Donald Trump did was illegal. So he goes into a different country to kidnap a guy because this guy committed the same exact crime of the guy that he had just pardoned. What is that?
Yeah, make it make sense, right?
Believe me, when that happened, I had followed the case. I didn't report on it, but I was following the case when it happened for Juan Orlando Hernández. And I was like, why would Donald Trump do that? I know that he's pardoning everybody and anybody, but this like pardoning somebody that, according to you, is a narco-terrorist is very bad for your brand. Why would somebody like Trump do something like this, especially when his whole I'm a macho man thing is and killing people in the Caribbean and kidnapping head of states, that he might do that as well in Cuba soon. We are waiting for that. It's about this narco-terrorism. So I think it just makes sense, you know, and when you listen to the audios, you have to speak Spanish, and even natively, I would say, in order for you to understand, because when you speak any language, but you know how the way that we articulate, the way that we pause, you know, and you can even hear background noise in these audios, you know, and I was listening to it because I was skeptical at the beginning. I was like, this is too good. I was like, this is gold when it came out. And I thought it was going to be the biggest story that I had ever witnessed when I first heard this. And when you listen to the audios, and I definitely think that even if you don't speak Spanish. You need to listen. I translated them and I had to go in and put it, a specific translation because it's not perfect when you use different things to try to translate. When you go in and you see and you hear the way that he's speaking, the way that he is even thinking, you're like, it's impossible. And I did some research as well as to how it works I did my own independent research, not of the audio, but how it sounds when the audio is artificial intelligence. And it's impossible to be able to replicate something like that. And I also, because when he went on the interview with CNN, he says that the audios were fake and that he did his own independent verification. That's Juan Orlando Hernández in the interview. He was like, so why didn't they give the original audios? And I also looked that up. You don't need the original audio in order for you to attest if something is actually artificial intelligence or not. Ideally, you have the original audios, but you don't have to have the original audios. So even there, he's lying.
I think I told you I finally got my husband Juan wearing moisturizer. I have been trying for years, but he always found that moisturizer made him sweat and he hated the feeling. But he recently saw himself on camera and was like, why do I look so dehydrated? So now he's using both a moisturizer and an eye cream. And you know what he's using? OneSkin. The founding team at OneSkin are longevity researchers who asked a deceptively simple question. If many visible signs of aging, like wrinkles and fine lines and the loss of elasticity, are driven by so-called zombie cells, what if you could actually reduce those cells to slow the aging process down instead of just covering it up? That research led to OS1, OneSkin's proprietary peptide. It's the first ingredient proven to switch off those damaged sentient cells, actually slowing skin aging directly at the source. This is serious science that fits easily into your existing routine. And every time we use OneSkin, we give our skin the signal to repair damaged cells, support collagen, and strengthen our skin barrier. OneSkin's results are backed by 4 peer-reviewed clinical studies, over 10,000 5-star reviews, and they've been recognized by Bloomberg as a leader in skin longevity. You really don't need a complicated routine to get healthier, younger-looking skin. Born from over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin's OS1 peptide is proven to target the visible signs of aging, helping you unlock your healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off by using the code PoliticsGirl at oneskin.co/politicsgirl. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with the code PoliticsGirl. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support the show and tell them that we sent you. I do most of my shopping online these days, but if we shop for clothes and home goods and skincare at home, why not our blinds? Honestly, I have shopped for blinds in a store where you think they look great and then you bring them home and they look flippin' terrible, or it's the wrong size or the color is off. But there's a better way to buy blinds and shades and shutters and drapery, and it's called 3-Day Blinds. 3-Day Blinds are the leading manufacturer of high-quality custom window treatments in the United States. 3-Day Blinds have local, professionally trained design consultants who have an average of 10+ years of experience and who will come to your home and provide the guidance and right blinds for you. You just set up an appointment and you'll get a free, no-obligation quote the same day. And if you're not very handy, 3-Day Blinds will handle it all for you. The design, the measurements, the installation. That way you can just relax and leave it to the pros. Check out 3-Day Blinds on Instagram. See how many amazing options they have. I'm telling you, I'm looking at my living and dining room lately and I'm thinking, oof, we really need shutters or wooden Venetians. With 3-Day Blinds, you can choose from thousands of options that fit any budget or style, from light filtering to blackout blinds to motorization and smart blinds that work with your Alexa. 3-Day Blinds allow you to easily and affordably upgrade your home. And with 45 years in the business, you know this is a company you can trust. Right now, get quality window treatments to fit your budget with 3-Day Blinds by heading to 3dayblinds.com/politicsgirl for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no-charge, no-obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/politicsgirl. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3, dayblinds.com/politicsgirl.
So even there, he's lying.
Well, I mean, the guy who was supposed to be in jail for 45 years and got out in 19 months may have reason to lie about this not being real. Listening to all of this, I'm pretty sick of being from a country that is working so hard to destabilize other country, right? A country that assassinates and kidnaps other world leaders, a country that acts like other countries are theirs to deal with. I find the arrogance staggering, and there seems to be a very good reason a lot of countries despise the United States. And I think more and more of us are seeing that these days. And I think I can honestly be patriotic and still say that it seems like American leadership has perpetually screwed up when it comes to a lot of other countries. And now we have the worst screw up in charge of our country who's just clearly making it all worse.
Yeah, and I think that Donald Trump is definitely that last drop that basically spills the entire water, because it's not that the United States government was perfect. It has never been perfect. We know what it has done in different countries. It has been like everybody has done it, but Donald Trump has done it at a level that we have never seen. And yes, maybe I heard somebody who told me, but at least he does it so everybody sees it. And I was like, that doesn't make it right. Right? It's like, and I was like talking about the corruption. He's like, but he does it. Everybody knows that it's happening. I was like, that doesn't mean that it's okay. Corruption, even if it's overt, is still corruption. And unfortunately, I don't think that the United States will recover from this. And honestly, I don't even know that Donald Trump is going to leave office in 2028. I am scared that he's not going to leave office. We already know that he's rigging the elections already by redistricting, by gerrymandering all of the Republican states. So I don't know that he's going to leave.
Well, he won't leave voluntarily. He will have to be removed. And in many ways, I keep reminding people, because I think when people hear that, they shut down, they get very upset. They want to disengage because it's too depressing for them. And I always say, we have to keep reminding ourselves of places like Hungary, right? Where their president was in power for 16 years. I think he's a prime minister in Hungary, but the leader was in charge. Orban was in charge for 16 years. And in that time, he was able to change their constitution. He was able to take over their courts. He was able to take over their media. The opposition couldn't even get on television to say, here are my ideas. So the opposition went from, village to village in Hungary and said, this is who I am, and this is what you're hearing, and this is what's really happening. And it was the turnout of the Hungarian people. They came out at 80% turnout, that Orban, even with everything he had in his corner, couldn't overtake the amount of Hungarians that came out to vote against him. And I think that's what we need to remember in America, that yes, this is bad. We have the world's biggest military and we've turned into a rogue terrorist state. We have an insane person at the wheel of our country, but it's well known that America has been kind of acting up for years. The CIA was deeply involved in throwing over the Castro regime in Cuba. We have been deeply involved in so many things for years. The question is, what if you put someone who is so overtly corrupt in charge and they don't even want to share it, they don't even want to hide it anymore? This is where we are right now. So people really need to know that, yes, it is terrifying. And yes, they are going to do everything they can to make sure that they can't be held accountable by flipping the House or flipping the Senate or changing the presidency in 28. But that doesn't mean that we can't still do it if we all come out and vote together. We have to vote in numbers that are way bigger than they're expecting. And I think they are a little over their skis thinking that every single Republican who's ever voted Republican is going to continue to vote for them, despite the fact that they're doing everything that they said they wouldn't do.
I think that based on the audios, because remember, these people that we hear in the audios are puppets of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Right. When we hear what they are capable or willing to do, we understand the severity of the situation. But again, just like you said it before, they think that they will get away with all of this. It is on us to make sure that doesn't happen. Somebody told me recently, you can just go back to the Dominican Republic where I was born and raised. And I said, no, I'm not going back. I could if I wanted to. In fact, I could live a better life if I continue doing social media in the Dominican Republic. But I'm not going to do that because that's what Donald Trump also wants. He wants people like me to be like, this is too much. Let me just leave. I'm not welcome here. But at this point, I've been here in this country almost as long as I was in the Dominican Republic. This is also my country and I will fight. And to get back to the point of what being a patriot is, the ones who got it wrong are them. What they're doing, the damage that they have inflicted in this country is not patriotism. They think it is. And Donald Trump has sold it to his cult, because it is a cult, as patriotism. Patriotism is what we are doing here, educating people and fighting for a better country where not only us do well, but everybody else. Because I'm pretty sure that you and me, we are fortunate enough to live comfortable lives compared to other people that we are fighting for. If it was just about us, we wouldn't be doing this work. But we care about other people who are not doing as well as we are. For example, you live in California, I live in Florida, but even if there's an abortion ban, I am fortunate enough that if I ever needed it, I could leave the state and go somewhere else and get it done. There are millions of women in places like Florida and Texas and all these Republican states who do not have that luxury. So that is what patriotism is, to do things that are not out of whatever we can gain from this, but for other people. And the ones who got it wrong, it's them.
Yeah, it is them. I often think, like, are we really breaking the law by standing up to the people who are breaking the law? I find that questionable. I don't think we are. I think we're standing on the right side of the law. And I have to say, you know, like, you are from Dominican Republic. I'm from Canada. People often say the same thing to me. They're like, why don't you just go home to Canada? You'd have a better life and you could do the same thing from there. And I'm like, because if the people who really want to fight for this country leave, that leaves the people who can't leave alone to fight by themselves, and they can't do it. I think we need everyone working together. If you really believe in this country, you want to stand behind it, this is the place you need to be right now. And I have to say, before you go, since my audience isn't necessarily fluent in Spanish or heavily informed in Latin American news, what else would you have us know so we can stay informed about what's going on in that part of the world? And where do you think Latin American citizens stand right now with this current government as we come up to the midterms?
For starters, there's a website that I'm going to send you so that you can link it as well for anybody who wants to go see the audios, the original ones that do not have the translation that I did. All of that, they will be able to find it. They will be able to find even the verification process is very well detailed of how they do it and what they use it. Again, they have the audios as well. So anybody who wants to do the independent verification, to do their own stories, I actually am begging people to please cover the story because it's important. And this should be bigger news. It's HondurasGate.ch. That's the website. And when it comes to me and my people, I like to think of me as fearless because I'm like, bring it on. But as a community, and because I am scared for my community and people in Latin America, everybody's scared because everybody knows and have seen already what Donald Trump is capable of. And of course, there are some right-wing people who do not care about other people. And we have that in Latin America as well. And we have many presidents who are right-wingers and who support Donald Trump and have bowed down in anticipation to whatever Donald Trump would do to them. So we already have that. But the rest of thinking people who actually care about others other than themselves, everybody is scared because everybody is seeing what Donald Trump is doing and everybody is just in expectation. We don't know what this crazy man is going to do next. The way that we feel is that we are in a car with a drunk driver and we don't even have a seatbelt to put on. That's the way that I feel and that I see people feeling. We don't know what's going on. This guy is going 100 miles per hour. He's drunk as fuck. He's falling asleep and we are helpless in the back.
Yeah. And I think we have to work as a team, as a group, as anyone who doesn't want to die in this vicious car crash to, you know, strip the wheel from him, to get him out of power. I think we need to do whatever needs to be done to change the way we're going. And I think one of the things is it seems like right-wing leaders around the world are very concerned that these left-wing leaders are going to stay in power, get elected, make good on their promises, and show an alternative to what these right-wing leaders keep trying to tell us we all want. And I think that's why, you know, what you're seeing in New York City right now with Mamdani, and everyone said if he gets elected, like everyone's going to move out and it's going to be horrible and it's going to be communism. And here he is balancing the budget and giving people what he promised. And everyone's like, hold on a second. Maybe we want communism? Question mark. Because
in
of
only
course,
6
he's
months.
not communist at all. Yes. And that's the thing. In 6 months, he's been able to deliver on so many promises and he's up there in the nosebleed seats for the Knicks games with the actual people. And he's not doing it for himself. And I think that scares the right wing because you know, if you're actually doing it for the right reasons, government can really be a force for good. And I think they want us to forget that. And they want us to fight among us ourselves while they take the spoils of everything else. And we cannot allow that.
Exactly. And to Mandani, who is my favorite politician ever for now, we will hold him accountable when we have to. He scares not only the right wingers, he scares everybody because he has definitely raised the bar for us of what a politician should be and should do.
Yeah, I completely agree. He's scaring anyone who is a centrist, incrementalist, who doesn't have imagination and who just says, we can't get it done. It's always been like this. Let's reach across the aisle. He's saying, no, let's look out for the people first. And he's showing that you can actually do that. I want to thank you so much for coming. I want to thank you for bringing this to my attention. And I hope you'll come back again and kind of keep us informed of what's going on in the Latin American world, because we don't often know it. And I think it's really important that we expand our minds and keep our brains open to how it's all interconnected.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Let's hope that your audience helps this story get there, because we need people. We need more people. I am not a gatekeeper. Oh, this is my story. I'm the only one who can tell. No, please, everybody, talk about it. Because at the end, I feel like if I come back and you have me back to talk about this, it's because we're going to talk about something that proves that the audios were indeed real. And I do believe that they are. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Heidy. So that was Heidy Torres, sounding the alarm about HondurasGate, a scandal of epic proportions that no one is talking about. The leaked audio shows coordination between Trump, Netanyahu, the former president of Honduras and convicted narco-terrorist Juan Hernández, and Argentinian President Javier Milei. These men and their representatives are talking about things like Donald Trump remaining in power, super cities for the 1% with high-speed trains between them, where the ultra-rich live in luxury and the rest of us die on the outside of their walls, the destabilization of progressive governments in Latin America to allow a quicker transition to the rising powers of the corrupt power players in the world, who, we can hear in these audios, are all colluding with each other. I want to thank Heidy for joining us today, and you for caring enough about the big picture to be willing to understand what's really going on. Now, start talking to your friends about it. Until next week, PG out. Before you go, understand that an episode like this is so essential because it's not information we're getting from our own government or media. Based on this story, you can see why the American government is trying to silence any voices that don't disseminate their propaganda. They want to confuse you, and they hope that these stories stay under the radar. So if you respect what I'm trying to do here, if you learn something from my podcasts and my rants, if you would like to get this podcast ad-free delivered directly to your inbox, along with my Kitchen Rants TV appearances, then please consider becoming a member of PoliticsGirl Premium by going to politicsgirl.com and signing up. If you're already a premium member of this podcast, I want to thank you for your support. And if you're not a member, please consider becoming a patron of my work. If you want real knowledge in a world of lies, it's essential to support those of us out here still trying to bring them to you. There is a link to sign up in the bio of this episode, but also on politicsgirl.com. And as always, please like and share these podcasts so we can grow our audience, because the more people who have access to this kind of information, the better. As always, thank you for your time and support. The Politics Girl podcast is written and performed by me, Lee McGowan, and produced and edited by Happy Warrior Entertainment. All rights reserved.